Welcome to It's All Mental, a podcast from Everyturn Mental Health. Mental isn't a bad word. There's no health without mental health. We're here to talk about every high and low. No limits, just good conversation.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of It's All Mental, Everyturn Mental Health podcast. You're joining me, Jo Armstrong from the comms team, and today I am joined by Ciara. Ciara, I'll let you introduce yourself. So if you just want to start by telling us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so sure. As you said, my name's Ciara. So I live in Chester in the northwest of England and work not too far away in the Wirral service. And currently I'm a locality lead for the Wirral NHS Talking Therapy service and also a HIT therapist delivering CBT, IPT and EMDR.
Okay, there's a lot of acronyms in there.
There is.
Can you tell us what a HIT therapist is and what you do? What a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah, so a HIT therapist stands for a high intensity therapist. So that's someone who would work at step 3 in a NHS talking therapy service. So delivering slightly more intensive therapy interventions such as cognitive behaviour therapy, which is CBT, or interpersonal therapy, which is IPT. Counselling is also sits at step 3, and EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. So for me, day to day, on a clinical day, I would have a set of patients scheduled in, and I would conduct sessions delivering those. That range of interventions. They're usually an hour-long sessions. I'd be writing up my notes, following up on any actions, and on locality lead days I'm supporting team members and colleagues to manage their caseloads and manage referrals that come into the service and risk, and just help the service operate day to day.
Sounds great. Sounds busy. Sounds very busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you always want to be a therapist? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or how did you come about the role?
Yeah, I really struggle with this question. It's just something that evolved slowly. At A level, I was given the opportunity to study psychology, and I really jumped at the chance. I was drawn to the idea of kind of just understanding people a bit better. It just felt quite mysterious, and people are mysterious at times. So I was really drawn to that, and then I just continued that into higher education. And then following university, I sort of worked in different mental health contexts, from inpatient units to supported housing, and just at each opportunity really the path just became clearer and clearer. Found myself found my way to IAPT, and yeah, I just felt like the path became clearer, and it just became something that I was loving doing and something that I was good at. And growing up, my family would always say that I was quite like quiet, quite observant, quite measured. So I think it's just a role that I've fallen into naturally.
Great. And the reason we're chatting today is to obviously raise awareness and chat a bit more about Black History Month. And we know from previous chats that this year's theme is around saluting our sisters, which is a movement to recognise the crucial role that Black women have played in shaping history, inspiring change and building communities. Could you tell us a bit more about what Black History Month means to you, and in particular what that theme means to you as well?
Yeah, so I mean, Black History Month to me, just like any kind of cultural event or anniversary, it's just an opportunity to really consume and promote as much education and resources and information as possible. For me, I don't live in a particularly diverse area. I never really have. So for me, it's great because all of this information and resources and community becomes more visible during that time. So that feels great. And just yeah, there's a lot more resources that are more readily available, and that just sets us up to being like more informed and more intentional, moving forward past Black History Month. And the theme specifically just feels really special to me. You know, we know that inequality for women generally is a major social issue, but it's really important when we're looking at those issues to consider intersectionality and the additional disadvantages that that someone might experience being a Black woman. For me, my identity, my relationship with my race and ethnicity is an ever-evolving process, as I'm sure it is for most people from minority groups. And as I said, the places that I grew up and the schools that I went to and the places that I work don't really present a lot of opportunities for me to feel fully seen or understood, just because, you know, as I said, they're not particularly diverse. So yeah, again, this theme is just really promoting people that I can look up to and can aspire to be, and just provide lots of opportunities to see myself in others and connect to community. And what I also love about this theme is that I feel like Black culture really influences pop culture. You know, whether that's Afro-Caribbean influences or the Black British experience, that really kind of shapes culture. But during this theme, we get to celebrate change makers in other industries, such as healthcare and science and politics and activism, none of which were taught in school. You know, these really inspirational Black women, Black leaders. So yeah, I find it really inspirational.
Cool. And on that note, who does inspire you at the moment? Like, who does inspire
Who
you?
does? Yeah, gosh, that's a really hard question as well. It's not so much a person, although there are lots of people that I find inspiring, but I particularly find at the moment people inspiring who, or the people that I find inspiring are people that I feel aren't particularly nervous to take ambitious steps, that really kind of trust their instinct and take chances on things that they really believe in. Say yes to new and unknown things. And just like we were saying in terms of the theme of Black History Month this year about celebrating our sisters, those are people like that, you know, people that have put themselves in potentially difficult situations to make change. You know, even my mum was always like that. She's a big inspiration. She always or she has a strong sense of self. She really trusts her instincts. She's really driven by a sense of adventure, whereas I can sometimes be more hesitant about things. So yeah, people like that, my mum, change makers, I find that really inspiring, and it pushes me to say yes to things. Even saying yes to this podcast, my initial instinct was, no, but I was like, Ciara, you know, just put yourself out there. It's something that I believe in, so do it. And that's what I find inspiring.
Great, brilliant. That's really inspiring to hear. And on that note, obviously, awareness events and days are great at raising voices, and you know, they're really great. But what can we do? What can we do at Everyturn as an organisation to do more past Black History Month, and what can others do as well? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think marking culturally significant moments is really great, but I think ultimately it's about making a commitment to seeking out voices from underrepresented communities, in this case the Black community, Black voices, and also making a space at the table for those voices, you know, at decision-making levels. You know, particularly in the Wirral service, we've been looking at the underrepresentation of minority groups accessing the service, but also within the staff group, you know, and really that our diversity doesn't reflect the diversity within the community. So I think as organisations, representation is something that's really important to look at all levels, as I said, even at a decision-making level. I've also really loved with the equality, diversity and inclusion policies and conversations, the inclusion of that word equity. You know, it's something that's talked about a lot more now, rather than just equality. You know, we can't have equality without equity. So the burden should be placed on organisations to make an intentional, targeted effort to address inequity. And for me, I think that means allocating resources, prioritising campaigns that target underrepresented communities, resources in marketing, recruitment. There needs to be that intentional, targeted effort to improve our representation and to make sure that we're hearing Black voices in this instance. And yeah, I think that's really important. And even, you know, a really small example would be something that I've been trying to do just in my day-to-day in work is, you know, even when we're using materials like therapy materials, worksheets, or whether it's marketing materials, you know, using people and names that are from ethnic minority groups. You know, again, it's about representation, and making sure that people are getting used to seeing these names and seeing these people. And we have a responsibility to address that, really.
Yeah, yeah. So on that point around sort of underrepresentation within your where you live, do you feel, Ciara, that things are changing? Things from being little and growing up in that area, do you feel that things are changing and there is more representation of the Black community and, you know, more positive change is coming?
Definitely, yeah, things are different. It's still very much in the minority. I actually don't know the stats in my local area. Um, I would hazard a guess to say it's still not reflective maybe of the national stats, but it's just loads better. I think things like obviously the population increases, and more Black people move to the country, so people start spreading out, but also the university here is growing, employment opportunities, the links to major cities like Liverpool and Manchester start drawing in lots of people. So gosh, yeah, I mean, when I was little, I used to walk around Chester town with my dad. He would, if he saw another Black person, he would nod. It was like a biker club. It was like, you know, just like this acknowledgement of like, you know, I see you and you're okay, and
Yeah,
like a friendly nod. That's how rare it was, you know, it would just
yeah,
be us.
yeah.
Whereas now it's not like that. You see lots more Black faces. Again, the university plays a large part in that. So it's definitely better. It's definitely growing. And that's great. You know, there's a hair shop that I can buy products from, which I never used to be able to do. I used to have to go to a different city to get my hair done. So things like that are really tangible changes that I'm benefiting from. So yeah.
Last year, Ciara, you wrote a fantastic blog post for the Everyturn website, which was specifically around discussing equalities faced by the Black community in areas such as health, housing, crime, unemployment, etc. What are your thoughts on what can be done to support underrepresented communities going forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've spoken about how organisations can support, but even if we just focus on a personal level, it's not much different. You know, it's supporting underrepresented communities by going out and seeking their voices, find those voices, listen to them, get out there, meet people from those communities, really start thinking about how much exposure you have as an individual to different communities. How many diverse voices do you actually hear in your day to day or week to week? And I think a really big thing that's important to say is it's about being consistent. I think when it comes to addressing inequality, um, on an organisational and on a personal level, we're kind of keen to get results, you know, which comes from a positive place, you know, wanting to see that the actions that you're taking are making a difference and engaging the right people. But ultimately, for a lot of minority communities, particularly the Black community, there is a lot of mistrust. You know, if for people who are in majority groups or people in authority. So it's about consistency and just being there, whether that's, you know, conducting a drop-in at a local multicultural centre, and even if nobody shows up, just you show up at the same time every day and be there, or whether that's volunteering somewhere in your local community. And again, just making a long-term commitment to doing that, to showing up. So it's just really important that we're not just fueled by results, but it's just about slowly building a bridge, extending that open invitation. So I think that's really, really important. But personally, again, something that I think is a really good idea, I've made a commitment over the recent years to really think about the content that I'm consuming, and also the money and or resources that I'm spending. So with regards to content, I've made a really conscious effort to follow, watch, listen, read Black creators, artists, entertainers. I really feel like when I was growing up, I was drawn to TV shows or stories or music that I'd be really confused that my friends hadn't heard of, because it was, you know, I was really into these things, and I realised it's because I was being drawn to them because I could see myself in them, and people tend to watch and consume what they can relate to. But the problem is with that is, again, it just becomes a bit of an echo chamber, and you're only seeing the voices that, you know, from one group potentially, or just not particularly diverse voices. So, and we know that like entertainment and comedy and literature, they explore social issues, don't they, and cultural issues.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
so even just in the entertainment and the content that we consume, we can just learn a little bit about other people's life experiences, and what's the norm for those types of families or those groups of friends. And so I think disrupting your social media feed a little bit by clicking on accounts that you wouldn't usually follow, watching TV shows where, you know, the lead or the majority of cast is, you know, of a group that you're not a part of, telling stories that you don't necessarily directly relate to, I think is a really easy way to start hearing different voices. And I think it really comes back to, I always think of that phrase, you can't be what you can't see, you know, and you can't support what you don't know. So it's really important just to expose yourself a little bit more, and that's an easy way to do it. Another example then is with money and or resources. So I was really inspired by the Black Pound Day initiative. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I was going to say, I've
initiative.
not heard of that. If you could explain a bit more about what that is, that'd be great.
Yes, yeah. So it was an initiative that was founded by a UK music artist, I think his name's Swiss. So it focused on addressing the economic inequalities faced by the Black community, or the Black wealth gap. And the idea is that one day a month, which is the first Saturday of every month, people are encouraged to buy something from a Black business or hire a Black service. You don't have to go out of your way to spend money. They're just encouraging you to, if you're already looking for goods and a service, just to see if those goods and service could be purchased from a Black business. And just, they've got an Instagram account and you can follow, and they post really helpful information and statistics about the inequalities, the wealth inequality that the Black community face, and just the knock-on effect that that has on employment, therefore finance, therefore housing, therefore health, and just looking at addressing those really. So I've been taking part in this initiative, but also I've made an effort outside of Black Pound Day just to seek out Black-owned businesses whenever I require a service. And again, that's me taking responsibility to diversify the people that are around me, as well as supporting Black-owned businesses. And it comes back to what I said about equity. You know, it's not about now unfairly excluding other businesses, but just acknowledging that one community is already disadvantaged. So
Yeah.
I'm just making an intentional effort to target them so they
Yeah.
can start at the same starting line as everyone else. So those are two things that I think people can do to support. We already spend a little bit of money and we already consume a bit of content. So it's just about altering maybe slightly how we do that to seek out those voices. And just I've had a little think about this, and it's not quite related to the Black community, although it happens within the Black community. But I think a really good example about spending money is, have you noticed there's a lot of now like Korean and Japanese beauty products in the mainstream, a rise in popularity with the gua sha skin tool and things like that. So these products come from long-standing traditional cultural cultural practices from people from those communities, and now they're being incorporated into Western beauty trends. And then what happens is then those products are then sold globally by companies that are not run by people from those communities. So, you know, again, if you think about money, is then not filtered back into that community where those products and those practices and services originate from. So that's just a really specific example of how it can have a knock-on effect on community, and that absolutely is mirrored in the Black community as well, particularly around hair care and beauty. So that's something.
That's brilliant. That's all massively practical advice. And that kind of brings me on to the next question I was going to ask in terms of sort of being an ally and allyship, and sort of not necessarily being from a particular community yourself, but wanting to help and raise awareness and, you know, raise voices. And that's really practical. Is there anything else you would suggest, Ciara, that an ally could do? Probably more from a practical point of view. I mean, you've given us loads there already, which is great.
Well, definitely those things, but I mean, I think I think ultimately everyone should be doing the same thing, whether you're an ally or a member of the community. So, you know, finding those voices, listening, supporting, all those things. But I think from an ally's perspective, I suppose it's just really maybe calling out things, you know, standing up for injustice that you might see. People from minority groups can often really struggle with that, for many reasons. So I think that's something that's often missing a lot, is just saying, oh, I don't think that was okay, you know, or so and so seems really upset with that, even if you maybe don't 100% know why. But everyone can sense when there's an energy shift in a room, and sometimes if you're an ally, you might feel that you don't know what to say, you're not 100% sure. And so again, it's just checking in on people. Are you okay? Like, was that okay? And then if it's not okay, can I say something? Is it safer for me to say something? So yeah, I think that's something additional that an ally could do, definitely.
Brilliant. That's really helpful practical advice. I think that's really much appreciated by allies, definitely. Brilliant. And lastly, Ciara, if there was anybody who you could, either past or present, sit down and have a cuppa with and a really honest chat, who would it be and why?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to pick two.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll go rogue.
Yeah. One is maybe a little bit obvious, but Beyonce, you know. I've
Good
loved
shout.
her from childhood. I suppose we're talking about people who are inspirational. I just find her inspirational. Me and my sister always laugh and say that I actually couldn't meet her because I wouldn't be able to speak. But if I could speak and have a drink and a chat, then it would be her. I just think she's amazing, and her work ethic and her thoughts on things. And again, her support for the Black community in really overt but also covert ways. You know, it's really threaded in everything that she does. So definitely Beyonce, but more importantly, above anyone, it would be my dad. He passed away a few years ago, so for obvious reasons, I would absolutely love to sit with him. And I've also felt that, you know, as you get older and you continue evolving and growing, our understanding of our parents and our loved ones evolves too. And so I'd love to obviously have a chat with him about anything, but also about like more mature conversations and social issues, and really find out what he thinks about some of the stuff we discussed today, and just get on his thoughts on things. That would be really special.
Brilliant. That's been brilliant. Ciara, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot from an ally's point of view, but it's been an absolute joy chatting with you. You're so inspirational, and thank you so much for finding the time, because I know you're incredibly busy. So thank you for finding the time to
That's
chat with me
okay.
today.
Thank
I
you.
know everyone will have enjoyed listening, watching and listening. Yeah, we'll look forward to chatting again soon, hopefully. So
Yeah,
thanks ever so
speak
much for
soon.
your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks for listening to It's All Mental, a podcast from Everyturn Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to follow, rate, and share. See you next time.